Hello and welcome along to another episode of My Football Story from the Honest Football Podcast. This week I'm lucky to speak to another former Luton player, this time Gary McSheffrey. We speak to him about his illustrious footballing career, starting at his home city club Coventry, making a Premier League debut in 1999 and at the time becoming the youngest ever player to feature in the competition. We then talk about success at that club as well as loan spells at Luton, which really put his name on the map after injuries. We then talk about a big money move to Birmingham, the successes of his early spell there, and frustrations which led to loan spells later down the line at the likes of Nottingham Forest and Leeds, two more massive football clubs of course. And we then talked about Gary falling back in love with football after moving back to Scunthorpe and Doncaster further down the EFL. Gary continues to play in non-league as well as moving into coaching with the Doncaster Academy, and he's really honest throughout about his career. We also talk about youth international honours as he featured for England up to under 20 level and was involved in under 21 squads. I can't thank Gary enough for giving up his time to speak to us. If you do enjoy the episode, of course, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the podcast for regular interviews from those involved in the game, as well as weekly championship predictions and much, much more. But this is Gary McSheffrey's football story, and we really hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I'm delighted to be joined by Gary now, and although you've had an illustrious career, we always start at the same place for people, which is your first memory of football. Now, it can be kicking a ball for the first time, it can be the first game you remember watching. What's your first memory of football itself?
First memory of football really is probably Italia 90. I was born in 82. So in terms of watching something and being hooked was then. Similar sort of age, I probably went to my first Coventry game. I think it was Coventry Tottenham at Highfield Road. I sat in the cop. It was decent. I remember Paul Gascoigne playing Lineker, Lloyd McGrath playing for Coventry, absolutely smashing Gascoigne all game. Had a man marking job on him. But yeah, they're the sort of memories really. And obviously just playing and watching my brothers play, because I'm the youngest of four. Right. So I obviously just used to watch them play Sunday League and that, throughout growing up and going. My old man would always say, make sure you've got your shin pads and boots in the car just in case they need a sub. So every now and again at about 8 years old, I'd nick a little subs appearance here and there.
Well, that leads on to what I was going to ask next is, do you remember your first competitive football? I guess you might have got odd minutes there, but do you remember the first sort of organised team you played for competitively on a regular basis?
Yeah, so when I used to watch them play, it was a different team. And then what happened was my dad took my next brother up and the next one after that to a new team. It was in Coventry and it was Ernstford Dynamos. That coincided with me being like 8 coming up to 9 then. So I went and trained with, they were trialling for like an under-10s team for the next season. And I didn't know anyone. Went there, done well, yeah, and ended up getting in that team and played there for 3 seasons, yeah, under 10s, under 11s, under 12s. And then at the end of under 12s, that's when back then it was called, academies were called Centre of Excellences. Yeah. Coventry then had a games programme every Sunday. So you had to stop playing grassroots. So from 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s, I think they were the age groups where we started playing for Coventry every Sunday. And, we had to leave the grassroots behind. But I remember my first 3 seasons at grassroots, unbelievable. The first season was difficult. There was some really good teams, but then the next 2 seasons we improved. I think a couple of players signed for us at under 11s, and that was the difference really. We were just missing a couple of decent players. Then we went 2 years unbeaten, and then when I stopped playing, they went another 3 years unbeaten. So they're my earliest memories of local football, yeah.
And that sort of leads on nicely to then going into Coventry. Obviously, from the Coventry area, going in to play for the club that, as you say, you first went to watch live, that must be quite special. So talk to me about getting into Coventry and how you felt in the earlier years that often get missed off.
Getting in was, so I was training with them probably from about 9. Got scouted literally at under 9s, under 10s. Might have even been at some school 5-a-side tournaments, at weekends or something there. Because I seem to remember getting scouted from them before I even started playing under 10s proper football. We didn't really have games. It was just probably like the development centre now for pre-academy, if you like. Yeah. And you train once a week. And then I went and obviously played for Ernstford. And Coventry were really good at having a couple of scouts always at the minor league, the grassroots games. Yeah. And we had a good team all through the age groups. And every now and again, we'd train once or twice a week and have a game probably every few weeks. And then, like I said, from 12s, 13s, you had a game every week, trained 3 nights a week. So it got more serious then. It's a great city for breeding, footballers. It's like in recent years, it's been like a conveyor belt of good player after good player. And, you get the odd really good one. It's a couple playing in the Prem now that, top draw. So yeah, it's a city, it's a football city, it's a one-team city, and it was a great upbringing for football in Coventry.
And the thing that probably interests me most about you is that you're very unique in the sense that we normally talk about players once they get into the youth team, they get a scholarship or whatever else. But your period of that was very short because you were in the first team within half a year of that happening, basically. So tell me how it came about that you went from suddenly being an under-18 to being in the first team within a matter of months.
When I left school, I'm an August birthday, so I was still 15, and I started playing and I hit the ground running. Had a good pre-season. Whenever Gordon Strachan needed a player to train, 2 or 3, it was always me, a couple more, my friend Craig Peed, he'd been at the national school at Lilleshall. So me and him went into the scholarship first years at the same time, and we were thrown in at the deep end a little bit with the training. We joined in that pre-season in 1 or 2 sessions, got a couple of minutes in pre-season friendlies, which was a shock and a surprise. Unheard of back then, really.
Yeah.
And then, so like I say, hit the ground running, and I actually got in a squad. I actually got in like a League Cup, like I might have been the Littlewoods or Carling Cup or something back then. Actually got in one of them squads, probably in about the September, probably 3 or 4 games into the season, because I'd scored a few already in the first couple of league games for the youth team. Yeah. And it was under 17 Premier Youth League back then. No one was really scoring at the club, so the reserve coach, Trevor Peaks, he's pulled me and said, Mackie, you're in the squad for tomorrow night, mate. Have you got a suit? I'm like, no, I've got me school blazer, mate, at home, and that's about it. So anyway, I actually got in the squad for 3rd game of that season in my first year scholar, which was a shock to the system. But I was 17th man. I was in the stand. So I think Strachan was probably just trying to give me a little boost and reward for starting well, but also probably give his first team squad a bit of a kick up the backside and say, look, if you start scoring goals, otherwise I'm going to put a kid in. It worked because Cov's first team back then was a really established Premiership team. But it was the golden era of my lifetime. That team was superb. In the 90s, that Premiership team in the late 90s, it was brilliant. And then had a good season for the youth team. And I think it got to February, we were having a good FA Youth Cup run. Yeah. And we had Sheff U at home, I think, on a Friday night in the Youth Cup, and we were 4-0 up. I'd scored 2. And then I got pulled off after about 60 minutes, which I was frustrated. Obviously, I thought, I want my hat-trick here. My coaches at the time, so Richard Money was academy manager, and George Mackey was our 18s coach. He said, stop frowning, you're in the squad tomorrow. Go home, get showered, get a suit, you go into the hotel tonight. And I was like, bloody hell, what's going on? Chris Kirkman was in goal that night as well. So me and Chris had to go to the Forest of Arden Hotel in Meriden because we had Villa the next day, Villa away. And I was, honestly, mate, it was just such a, you didn't have time to think about it. All of a sudden I was there, I had a kip, and then I'm eating breakfast with the first team squad. The speculation and all the spotlight was a bit different back then, wasn't it? It was kind of like, no one would have known that until my name was on the team sheet the next day. If that was now, you'd probably know that on the Friday night. Someone would probably like tweet something or Snapchat something and then a screenshot, and it's all out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it was kind of good that it happened like that. Yeah, a bit of a shock to the system, but it was good because, listen, I don't think I was ready. Well, I knew I weren't ready for consistent first team football at that point, but I definitely feel like I deserved a shot at some sort of appearance because I think I got 37 goals that season. And for a first year scholar, the youngest in the team, I think it was a good start, and it was good that I could get involved in such a game like that. And we won 4-1 at Villa Park, and Cov fans remember that game forever.
And I was going to ask you about that game specifically because, as you said, it is a very young age. Your first real experience of adult football was a few reserve games and then a Premier League match. And at the time, you set the record for the youngest player ever to appear in the Premier League. So talk to me about your emotion on that day, because that's the thing that probably varies most from footballers. Was it mainly excitement, or were you just a bag of nerves, essentially?
No, honestly, it was a bit of a blur. But I always remember just being busy warming up and like constantly looking at Strachan thinking, put me on, I remember Southgate was playing. Yeah. Simon Grayson, who then became my manager at Leeds. There was a few players playing, and I just thought, my mindset at the time, I was so confident, especially after coming off 2 goals the night before.
Yeah.
And I was a bit of a whippet back then, you know, I was pretty quick, playing off the shoulder. And I just thought, just put me on. And we went 2-1 up, then we went 3-1 up, I think, in about the 82nd minute or something. And I'm like, chuck me on here, I'll score a goal here. But yeah, he left it to like 90, literally 2 minutes. I think I got 2 minutes in injury time. And listen, it was great, don't get me wrong, but I wanted longer, you know. I was buzzing, I was excited, and I was trying to keep myself in his vision, warming up. But no, he wanted to make sure we got the win first and then just give me a couple of minutes at the end.
I guess as well as coming through at Coventry, part of that process is going out on loan, and you did have a few loan spells. I guess as a Luton fan, that will probably be the most memorable for me. But the first question I've got to ask, because it stands out quite a bit in your career history, is how you ended up in Sweden.
So I obviously had that first good year in the youth team. Second year, again, another decent year. Bit of an injury hit one though, and I think it was when I got I think I was into my first year pro then, but I think it was the year after I'd had an injury hit season in the youth team, but I'd always played because, again, we had a good cup run. We got to the youth cup final for the second year on the spin, but it got to a point where I was just playing the games and not training, and had this injury for a while, rested it that summer, come back, and the injury hadn't gone. So then I ended up having to have surgery on my left hip to try and cure this problem I had. It was like an IT band problem. So in runners, for example, runners get like a runner's knee. It's where the IT band rubs and inflames down on the outside of the knee. I kind of had that, but up on the hip bone. Really, really uncomfortable, but started getting in both hips. Needed surgery in the end. So you have surgery, then there was a 10 to 12 week rehab on one, and then I had to have the other one done straight away. So it was just like, there's 5-6 months gone. So I missed a huge chunk of that season, and that's when my academy manager said to me, I've had a chat with the manager, we think we want you to go and play over in Scandinavia for the summer, so you're not going to get summer. We need you to get fit, get games, come back next season, hit the ground running. So I was just like, yeah, fine, whatever. You can't really say no, do you know what I mean? It's, if you look back now, and nowadays, mental health's everything, isn't it? Yeah. Mentally, I think I needed that summer. I needed a bit of a break because I was still in every day doing rehab, doing 3 months rehab, to know that I'm then just going to get surgery on my other hip was like demoralising at the time. Yeah. I think that brick gym we had, that concrete gym we had in the corner of the Sky Blue Lodge was like a prison cell for 6 months. But yeah, I ended up going to Sweden, and initially I was going to this place called Cafe Opera in Stockholm, and it was basically a casino, a restaurant complex, a nightclub, shopping complex in the middle of Stockholm that had a football team and a stadium connected. So I was thinking, this will be good then, good experience, you know. Yeah. Go and live in Sweden for a couple of months and have a good time, play football. What can't you enjoy about it? And then last minute, Richard Money's pulled me. He's gone, listen, we've changed the club. I don't trust you'll just focus on the football, you know. There's too many distractions in Stockholm. And I was like, you're probably right, to be fair. But so I ended up going to a place called, in English it's called IK Brage, but it's called IK Brage, middle of Sweden, a little place called Borlänge. I think there's about, I don't know, maybe 30,000 population. Every game was like 5-hour coach drives, everything. Some were 9 hours down to Malmo. Stockholm was about 3.5 hours away. But yeah, it was an experience. I was supposed to be there for 3 months. I'd done a couple of months. And obviously, as you're coming back from injury, you get little strains, don't you? I had a thigh strain for about 3 weeks there, and I was constantly playing through it, thinking, I can't be injured. I can't be injured. So I've got to grind through this thigh strain. That was difficult. I think I played a few games for them. I think I scored one, but I was homesick. I was there on my own. I'd been obviously promised part of the deal was a car, an apartment, basically just your living expenses and stuff. And it was difficult. Like I remember the car. It was funny. It was like an old Talbot Sambra or something. My brother had one when it was his first car growing up. And it was heavy steering, you know, like left-hand drive gears. I was like, bloody hell. I had a Ford Fiesta at home, like a Ford Fiesta Ghia, and it was nice, comfortable, luxury for like a 17, 18-year-old. But then the apartment didn't come for a bit. And then when it did come, it was in a bit of a difficult area, you know. It was where like Sweden had like a lot of Kosovan refugees and stuff, you know, in basically a big estate. So I was kind of chucked in an apartment in there. And listen, there was never anything wrong, but I think it made me realise I toughened up a bit, I growed up a bit, but I was homesick because I was there alone. So I think if that was nowadays, I think the HR side of it and the safeguarding side of it would probably be a lot more, look, let's look after the player, make sure he's got company, maybe bring his mum over or a brother or something, you know, but it was late. It was basically, yeah, you go in there, enjoy your football, get fit, come back. So Coventry started pre-season in beginning of July, and I weren't due back till like mid-August, and got to a point where I knew I was seeing Coventry do training on videos and stuff, and I thought I need to be back. I want to be back doing pre-season. I don't want to miss a day. I don't want to be forgotten about. And so at one point I was kind of like saying, look, just bring me back. And Richard Money said to me, look, Gordon Strachan said, no, you're out there to play football, concentrate on the job. I said, no, I know that 100%. I am. I says, but I want to be playing football at Coventry. I want to be in his vision. I feel good. I feel fit. Anyway, 2 weeks later, Richard Money calls me. He says, come on, we'll get you a flight home. We know you're not happy. And to be fair, I hit the ground running that season again, pre-season training. So it served the purpose, really. It definitely did. Met some nice people out there. Lovely, lovely club, great people. At that stage of my life, I probably wasn't mature enough and ready for it, but it definitely probably helped me mature faster and stand on my own 2 feet a bit.
I appreciate you being honest with that. It's one of the biggest things, particularly in pros of your sort of generation, that gets missed is the off the pitch impact of the decisions back then. It's something that never really got talked about.
Lonely time, sitting in an apartment on my own for like after training till the next morning. Bit scared to walk out because you don't know what's going on in like the estate. I'm thinking, I'll just go hungry. I'll have breakfast tomorrow.
But moving back to England, obviously you mentioned more football with Coventry, a short loan at Stockport, and then I have to talk about Luton Town, and I'll try not to dominate it because it wasn't the biggest part of your career, but it's probably the first club where you became a hero again, I guess, because the Luton fans even now still remember you fondly. So what do you remember of it?
It was honestly put me on the map, put me back on the map, because obviously I'd made that debut at Cov. Then the season after, I'd made 5 appearances really early on. I think it was 4 in the Premier League coming off the bench, and 2 started both of the League Cup games. That's when I kind of realised, physically I probably wasn't ready, you know. I was fast, but I was just frail. I needed to like fill out a bit, bulk up, be a bit stronger. Strachan sort of pulled me and said, look, you're going back to the youth team. That was that really. And honestly, I probably didn't kick a first team ball again I probably didn't train with them for 6 months. I mean, like it was tough, and I'd sit there think, what have I really done that wrong? Because them few games, like the League Cup games, Tranmere, it was the year Tranmere got to the final. So Tranmere done us. We won the home leg. We lost the away leg. Ned Kelly, John Aldridge's team, Ned Kelly got a hat-trick. Good team, to be fair. Decent team. But it's almost like I felt like I was probably to blame rather than, well, the whole team were out there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. The whole team lost the game. But then it's me that got 6 months back with the youth team. But like I say, it is what it is. So that's where I had a big pause from playing 6 first team games to then not being involved. Gary McAllister come in, got the manager's job. Started the season for Gary McAllister and Eric Black really well, and I think I had 9 goals by October. Yeah. They dried up a bit after that. After the new year, I think I only had 1. And Gary McAllister pulled me. I still had 2 years on my contract, but he said I could leave. Ring your agent, tell him to give me a call and we'll sort something out. I said, well, I've not got an agent, to be honest. I think I was, 19, 20. So I've not got an agent. He said, well, look, anything you need, I'll help you out with getting you somewhere. So I thought, okay, well, we'll just see. I've got 2 years left. It was an era there where you don't look for moves. You're thinking, right, I'm at Coventry, I want to play here forever. You don't think about how much money you can make in the game. You just think, I want to play here. So I went back pre-season, done well pre-season, didn't go on the pre-season tour to Germany, which was disappointing, but it is what it is. We had a little like bomb squad back home in Coventry, and it was good because there were 7 or 8 of us, and there were some good characters in it, good players like Julian Joachim, John Eustace, Keith O'Neill, to name a few. You know, there was some really good players in it, and I just remember like getting my head down, training well all the time, and there was this one particular Friday. Back then, it was always the team that started on a Saturday were playing about 15 minutes, 11 aside versus the rest, the subs and the reses. And we beat the first team 2-1 and I'd scored 2 and I'm thinking, I was on fire in that training session. Surely you can't just ignore me. So I've gone back home after training and I get a call and I knew it was the Sky Blue Lodge number. I've known it for years. It was Gary McSheffrey. I'm thinking, buzzing on. I'm going to be in the squad for tomorrow. I'm travelling. No, it wasn't. Mike Newell had been on the phone to him, wanted to take me on loan to Luton. Immediately I'm like deflated because I'm thinking, I'm getting back in the team at Cov. And then he said, look, here's Mike's number, give him a ring. So I spoke to Mike and Mike said, cheer up, lad. You sound like you've just seen a ghost or something. And to be honest, I said, I thought I was getting a call about getting in Cov's team. He said, well, look, come here for a month, play well and get back in that team. And I sort of said, I went, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And he was like, give it a go. He went, lad, listen, if you want to give it a go, I don't want you here. And it kind of like put me on the spot a bit. Yeah. And I said, okay, look, no, I want to come and play football. And he said, okay, great, you're going to be starting tomorrow. So I went straight in. Honestly, best thing I've ever done. Best thing I've ever done. What a group of lads, that down to earth, good banter. Some days after games, Kev Nichols and New the gaffer would be arguing for an hour. We'd still be sitting there not showered. And it was refreshing because it was just, both of them had such strong opinions and knew their football that it was like, it wasn't just petulant arguing, you know what I mean? It was like, right, let's hit the nail on the head, let's get it out in the open. And probably the first time I'd sat in such honesty like that, you know, like you're sitting in a pub having a debate with your mates or something. Yeah. It was like that, but really good team. I had a good loan. I stayed there for 3 months. They wanted to make it permanent, Luton, but I'd sort of done pretty well, and I think I got 9 in 18 games. Yeah. But I was playing with a hamstring injury at Luton as well for probably 6 weeks. It used to constantly go. I had a problem with the outside of my knee, which was making my hamstring in my glute ping every game more or less, but it wasn't tearing or anything. It was just a neural problem, nervy thing. So I went back to Coventry after the 3 months and I spent 10 days in the treatment room. The physio wanted to get it right. During that 10 days, the physio told me that the gaffer was going to put me back in. So I was like, look, don't treat it then. Just, I want to get back involved. And he chucked Julian Joachim in, who was in the bomb squad with me at the start of that season. Jules did really well. And then Gary McSheffrey had to leave for personal reasons when his wife was really poorly. And Eric Black took over and kind of gave me an inkling that if I trained well, I'd get an opportunity. And I remember Andy Morale was doing well for Coventry at the time. And he got an injury in he pressed the goalie in training on a Friday morning, took one in the face. And it's kind of like knocked his balance, and he's rolled his ankle as he's landed. Eric Black said, right, you're in, this is your chance. And me and Joachim were up front, and he got 10, I got 12 in 19 games. And on top of that, I think it was the 9 or 10 at Luton, that season put me back on the map. So that's why I always say Luton, honestly, was spot on for me. It was a great loan, great club, and I would have liked to have played there on a permanent basis, you know, because it was where you could just express yourself and enjoy your football. I think the fans appreciated that. If you weren't trying hard enough, they let you know, which was good. I didn't really get hammered by the fans at all there because I knew I put a good shift in, you know what I mean, and I played well, and it just brought my confidence back sky high.
And I guess after a pretty successful return to Coventry, you then turned into a player who was being demoted to the youth team up to a player who was now going for multi-million pounds. So then you become a Birmingham star. Tell me how that move came about, because obviously Coventry's a hometown club, but when Premier League or the opportunity for Premier League comes calling, surely it's a bit of a tough one to make.
Well, it was even tougher because after that year at Luton and Cov, then I had that was the start of probably 4 really consistent seasons of being the top scorer every season at Cov. And it was 15, 16, 17 goals a season, 12, 15, 16, 17, I think. It took me 4 good years to get any sniff of a move. Reading wanted me the year before, but I looked at it and thought, they're in the champ. It's a bit of a sideways move because they were always knocking on the playoff door, but not quite getting there. Yeah. And then it was the year they got 106 points and smashed it and got to the Prem, and I'm thinking, bloody hell. But it was our first year in the Rico at Cov. Yeah. So I thought I weren't leaving really for anyone. I wanted to play in the Rico. Had another good year. And then Birmingham come in the next summer. We were in Portland on pre-season training and Mickey Adams has pulled me just having a chat, and he said, look, Steve Bruce has rang me, he's offered £1 million for you. What are you thinking? And like I said, even in that era then, I was 23. It wasn't even thinking about moving. It was, well, what have you said? And he said, I told him to F off. I said, well, that's fine then. That's fine. It's good enough for me, whatever. And just cracked on. Anyway, this saga dragged on for like 4 weeks, I think. Come back with 1.2, 1.5, 2. And it was almost like got to a point where I sort of said to him, do the club want me to stay? And he said, well, obviously we don't want to lose you. I says, well, you need to just nip it in the bud then. Are you entertaining it, hoping for more money, or are you nipping it in the bud? It was a case of, I didn't quite know what was going on, like what to believe. Yeah. And I was like, well, look, if the club want me, this is what I can get at Birmingham, wages-wise, match it, or go below it a little bit, and it will show how much you want me and what the ambition is. Anyway, they didn't, and I think they were entertaining the bidding, the better bids. Yeah. And eventually it got to a point where Mickey pulled me and said, look, if you want to go to Birmingham, you're going to have to come out and say it in the press. And I was like, come on, Mickey, you're winding me up. Yous are entertaining. Yous want money. I know yous need the money. I don't necessarily want to go, but now it's dragging on this much. And I've seen the squad that's at Birmingham. I'm thinking, they've just got relegated from the Prem though. So they were in the Champ. So whereas the year before I seen Reading as a sideways one, I still seen Birmingham as a progressive move because of the squad they had and how they'd recruited that summer. It happened in the end. I went there and again had one of the best seasons of my career. I mean, the first 5 months was like anything I touched was goals or assists, and I felt untouchable for 5-6 months. Just a pity I couldn't sustain that level. You know, that was my problem really. I think I had 4 or 5 years of top level football, and it was just I struggled to maintain that level, you know, and then because you judged on all the good things and all the numbers and the goals, I think just being a good team player goes out the window when your goals dry up a bit, you know. And I honestly think that's what happened. There was a couple of years where I didn't play well, and I probably put too much on myself, too much pressure. And I look back now, and basically, with all the mental health talk now, my confidence was shot to bits for a couple of seasons. Yeah. Fact, 100%. And it took going back to Scunthorpe at 31 to love football again, because there was a 2-year period where it was getting a bit of a chore going in the morning. But Scunthorpe, I earned more money in the youth team than I did at Scunthorpe, but I hadn't loved football that much in years, do you know what I mean? And it took stripping it right back down to just playing with that freedom again and enjoying football. And I had a great 2.5 years there, and then just enjoyed the rest really.
And the only other bit I was going to ask you in between really is, I know it was probably frustrating for you at the time, perhaps not having the confidence you'd hoped, being out on loan at various clubs, but it's hard to ignore the fact that your loan spells were, albeit in difficult times, some of the most ridiculous institutions in British football in Forest and Leeds. So do you have any sort of special memories from playing from those, even though they perhaps weren't the happiest spells of your career?
Yeah, Forest one. I've got a funny story about Forest one. The Forest one, yeah, Billy Davis wanted me for a while. I think him and Ed Kelly wanted me from, I think, Preston days. And then they went Forest. And it was at a time when I weren't in Alex McLeish's team, but I'd had a real bad injury hit season with tendonitis in my knee. And it's one of them that just doesn't go. You have to maintain it and manage it. Got to a point where I'd been out a while and rehabbed 3 times, come back, out again. And that's when Alex said, listen, Billy Davis has been on the phone. I think it'd be good if you go out there, play a few games for the rest of the season. So I signed a month with a view to it being to the end of the season. Or I might have signed to the end of the season, but I think I played 4 or 5 games there, and I was struggling, man. I knew my knee was in bits. We were at the bottom of the league, so they needed like everyone at it, grafting. Do you know what I mean? I think Watford done us away 5-0 once, and some good players playing. You know, they had Cleverley was on loan there. Yeah, some good players. We got a draw. We got a good draw at home to Swansea. I think we played in a couple of draws, but I just knew I weren't at it. And looking back now, probably naive, thinking I'll go to a club like Forest in the Champ and hit the ground running and be on fire without having played for probably 4 months at Birmingham. It just don't happen. You need that period of getting match fit, you know, of getting games injury free, and I was never injury free. And I had a chat with Billy, and Billy had like 7 7 or 8 loans, but I think you could only field 5 or 6 in the matchday squad. And he said, how are you? Because you don't look like the player that used to play against me all the time. I said, my knee's in bits, honestly. I said, it needs sorting. And he said, look, I want you. I'm going to sign 8 players in the summer. You're going to be one of them, but go and get that knee sorted. So I went and had surgery in Sweden on my knee.
Yeah.
Birmingham weren't going to do it at first because obviously I was on loan at Forest. So I said, well, look, I'll pay for it myself, not a problem. Just arrange it for me. Anyway, physio sorted it for me in the end. One of them went over with me. I got the surgery done. It was great because it was only a 6-7 week rehab. It was arthroscopy, keyhole surgery. And then I'm still waiting for that call off Billy Davis. I've never spoke to him since, you know. And then I had Ned Kelly. He come to Scunthorpe as Mark Robins' assistant. And I said, Ned, still waiting on that call, pal. What's going on? And he just put the blame on Billy. Never trust what you're told, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, talking about Scunthorpe and probably the latter stages of your career, is we've had quite a few pros who, when they get into their 30s, who just say, I don't want to play anymore. But for you, I guess your last 5 or 6 years proved that your love for football's still there, because is it just a case of playing as long as you're able to, even now?
Yeah, I mean, I come up here. I still live up here in Doncaster now. So I come up to Scunny and rented a place in Doncaster. Like I say, enjoyed my football. I actually went Chesterfield first. Yeah. From Coventry, I went Chesterfield. That was, honestly, I didn't want to drop to League Two. Again, me being a bit naive. Chesterfield had a great squad. Yeah. I went there and I thought, this is decent. They'd won their first 8 games. I signed there till January and I played for free. I went there for free. They said they had no more money in their budget, but Paul Cook's like, bloody hell. He persuaded me to just get playing again, sign for them to start playing for nothing. It was like, I think you get £95 a week to sign as a professional footballer. It's like the minimum they have to pay you, I think. And he gave me my petrol money to get from Coventry every day. And do you know what? It weren't a problem because I left Cov and I kind of had a pay up off Coventry. So it was fine. And it was a great squad, like real good squad. Enjoyed it, but just didn't play enough. And he sold me the dream of it'd be me, Gary Roberts and Jay O'Shea behind in a 4-2-3-1 behind Mark Richards or Owen Doyle. And I was like, that sounds tremendous. I like that. Just start enjoying football again. I just left Cov under Stephen Presley and hadn't been enjoying it. And it was great. Anyway, I started. Well, I scored 2 in my first 2. Having not started, I didn't have a pre-season game. I hadn't had a pre-season. So I hadn't played since April of last year for Coventry. Come on the first one against Mansfield. Straight away, literally been there 2 days. Come on for about 20 minutes. And then Gary Roberts had got a red card. So straight away, he was a free match ban. I'd started the next game from nowhere and I'd scored. And then we beat Mansfield in the cup 1-0 away and I scored. So straight away, Chesterfield fans were buzzing because that's a big local derby.
Yeah. Then
the next game, I had a bit of a tight groin, but I thought, there's no way I'm not playing. I've got 2 and 2 here. As a striker or a wide man, whatever, you just keep playing. And Cookie pulled me and just said, look, I'm going to leave you out tomorrow. I'm going to play Richie Humphreys. You know, I don't want that groin. I don't want to lose you for 5 or 6 weeks. Now, whether or not that was genuine, I was sceptical because I knew Robbo had 1 game left of his suspension. And I just thought, I'm not a kid here. You know what I mean? Just be honest with me.
Yeah.
So then the week after, I didn't start. Robbo started, which, listen, he's a good player, good player, done really well for Chelsea, done well wherever he's gone. But I just thought it just was a bit clicky, a little bit clicky there. I loved it, great players, great lads, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But for whatever reason, I weren't getting in because I felt it was a bit clicky. And that's when I went Scunny in January. And yeah, two and a half good years there. Come to Doncaster on loan, had a good loan for 7 games, and then stupidly I go into a silly tackle with Romain Vincelot. It was against Coventry actually.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of adrenaline going. We were winning. I think we won 2-0, but done a bit of a stupid tackle, and I've ended up doing my medial ligament with it, block tackle, and didn't get back from that for 9 months. Ridiculous. Wow. And got back for the last 4 months of the season for Doncaster. The following season, we got promoted straight back up to League One. And that's when, I needed that period to get fit, but then I didn't get a new contract there. Yeah. Did the pre-season with them, felt great. Darren Ferguson was going to trying to offer me a month-to-month contract to get playing again, but the board weren't really having it because I'd been there a year and hadn't played enough. And I was about 33 now, going on 34. So yeah, you you're getting the 1 year from 30 onwards. If you're not in the champ, you're getting the 1 year contracts. You know what I mean? And I ended up going to Eastleigh then for a little stint in Eastleigh, and they were paying good money.
Yeah.
I turned it down a couple of times, but then I didn't have a club. I hadn't got paid now for probably about 4 months. So I thought, right, I'll give it a go down there till January. Decent setup, but an old school manager that just wasn't with the modern game, you know. Rude at times. We had a couple of conversations. I thought he was all right, but at other times I'm thinking, I played with top managers in this game for 18 years. Yeah. And I finally step out of professional football into the National League. You're getting spoke to like shit, really, you know, by some fucking dinosaur. I've never, ever hammered anyone, and that's the first time I probably said that. But honestly, I thought, what have I done? I ain't played 18 years at a decent level for this. Like, I might as well just hang them up. I think I was probably getting £1,600 a week to go and play for Eastleigh. He tried to pay me up twice for no reason whatsoever, just because he thought that I was coaching kids in training. He said if I wanted a coach, I'd have employed a coach. And I sort of said, well, you've just signed 11 players out of the Football League that are like 30 plus, some late 20s. What do you expect? No one to say anything, or no one to like manage games out there and stuff. So that's why I just thought it was a bit of a insecure, controlling manager that just wanted the control of everything. Yeah. So at the second time he offered me a pay up, I just went. I thought, I'm not dealing with this. Like, I've not had a grafted for my whole life and dedicated my life to football to be treated like this by, you know what I mean? So then I come back to Grimsby. Michael Jolly got the job. I rang Michael Jolly. He said, look, not sure where you're at or what you're looking for, but I live in Doncaster. I can travel in. And he said, look, come and train. Can you train tomorrow? I trained for a week. And I signed there for like 500 quid a week, and done my last 3 months. That was my last professional club, Grimsby. And again, enjoyed it. Lovely club, great fans. But yeah, just disappointed how it fizzled out at the end. But I wanted to continue playing even till now. But after Grimsby, I've come and trained with Doncaster for the pre-season again, but with the 18s, because the academy manager at the time offered me a role to be assistant 18s coach whilst I still wanted to play. So he says, if you play like non-league in, I don't know, National League North or something, you can still coach here a few times a week. So I was like, yeah, great. But honestly, I just couldn't really get a club, and I felt like I was chasing like Boston, I was chasing Alfreton. And I don't know what it was, but these weren't really entertaining me, whether they thought not interested in like a older pro coming. Yeah. I don't know, maybe some clubs or managers think that when you go to a club like that, you're trying to step into their role, hopefully, eventually. But that was never the case. I just wanted to play, earn a few quid, because I've got 4 kids now, and start coaching at Donny. But nothing coming, so I'm still coaching at Doncaster, and it's developed quite nicely, to be fair.
And is that something you look to continue to do with in the future? Are you looking to get into coaching longer term?
It wasn't like my plan, like, I'm going to coach and that's the be all and end all. I went and got my badges at 33, 34, 35, because I thought it's something that I might just step into and dip my toe in. Yeah. And then when you actually get in, you kind of get a little bit of a bug for it. If you want to be an academy coach, you're not in it for the money. Do you know what I mean? So at the minute, I'm in the academy development football. Did the 18s for a year, did the 23s for a year. Really good progression. With COVID and cutbacks, 23s has got cut off at Doncaster. No game program, no 23 squad now. So at the minute, I'm taking the 16s and transitioning the 18s to the first team squad type thing. But with COVID bubbles, I have to stay with the 16s at the minute. So I've done 18s, 23s, now 16s, so getting a variation of experience. But yeah, so you kind of get the bug then, and it's enjoyable seeing some players, you know, progress and develop, and some that you think at the beginning are quite, there's been some that have been a bit uncoachable, you know, with their attitudes, but then when they actually like buy into it and that, and you see the rewards and you see them coming through, it's good to see, and you feel quite good about yourself.
And the last thing I wanted to ask you about your career before we do the quick fires at the end is playing, and I've left it till last, is international honours. Because obviously you played for England youth teams up to under 20. I just wonder how you view that, because a lot of the players that we've spoken to, it's been the greatest thing they've ever done, whether it's England C, full internationals, youth internationals. and there's the odd one who preferred their club career. So where did you stand on that? Was it ever that special to you?
Yeah, it was. It was good. I mean, I got into a 21 squad at 16 with Peter Taylor, and I sat on the bench twice. Didn't get on. I'd not even got into an England under 15 schoolboys team or 16s. But then at the end of that first year scholarship, I'm in the England under 21 squad in Europe in qualifiers in Bulgaria, and there was a game at home at Huddersfield against Sweden, I think, from nowhere. At the time, it was because back then it was like if you had Scottish grandparent, Irish grandparent, whoever you kind of like played for under 21 level first, that was you stuck then in a qualifying game. So you couldn't, like nowadays, even Jack Grealish now, he played for Ireland, didn't he, in the youth stages. But then once he realised something would tie him down, he made a decision and backed himself that he's going to play for England one day. I think they probably just done that back then to try and tie me down, you know, so I didn't go and play for an Ireland or a Scotland. But yeah, I do wish that when I was playing really well, and I mean, we had Don Hutchinson at Coventry, always had Scottish managers, and they would be like, why don't you go and play for Scotland? And I'm like, well, I can't just turn up to a Scotland camp and play. They need to invite me, don't they? They need to ring me up. So it was almost like Scotland and Ireland. I kind of wish that something would have happened with them, because England, once I got past the 20s and 21s, and I played 20s regularly, 18s regularly, but 21 sat on the bench a few times. It would have been nice then to have some sort of career with maybe a Scotland or an Ireland at a time when I deserved it and I was playing well, because I think I definitely would have got a few caps. But like I say, it was an era, although it was only 15 years ago, it was an era where you didn't go chasing them things, or I didn't have an agent where I was like, that would be probably ringing the Irish FA or Scottish FA saying, look, have a look at my player, he'd do a job for you. Or it was a strange one. Look back now, I'd have probably got a few caps, you know, if it was in the modern day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's finish off with the quick fires, because you've had a very illustrious career, so it'd be rude not to. The first one, probably the hardest for most people to answer. The best player you've played with and against?
Look, I played with some good players at Coventry. I obviously played with like Robbie Keane. I played with Gary McSheffrey, top players. But I played like 2 games with them, 3 games. And I think I've never counted it like that. So I always answer this question with someone that had a real impact on a season or a club I was at, and I played with a lot. So there were some top players at Birmingham, but I always say Stephen Clements at Birmingham, because he weren't in the team when I first went there, and we went 4 or 5 on the bounce with a defeat, and Bruce was under pressure. It was Derby away actually. He brought back in Clements, Damien Johnson, and Martin Taylor, and we won 1-0, and we went 13 unbeaten, 11 wins, 2 draws, and promotion. And I always say, like, Stephen Clements dragged us over that promotion line that year. He captained us, and like centre midfielder was a warrior, but he had a good touch. He could get up and down. He scored 6 or 7 goals, and really had a massive impact on that season for me personally when we got promoted to the Premier League. So that's why I always answer that one. Playing against, there was obviously players in the Prem where they're stars, aren't they? Ronaldo, Tevez, Rooney, unbelievable players. It was great to play against Michael Owen when he was at Newcastle, because he was an idol, only a few years older than me. But when he broke on the scene at 16, he was just an idol for everyone, wasn't he? Yeah. Joe Cole, he was a pal growing up, you know, through all the England trials and that. And so it's hard to pinpoint one player, because I don't want to jump on a bandwagon and just say an absolute star. Do you know what I mean? In terms of right backs, most difficult to play against was probably Arbeloa when he was at Liverpool. Yeah. Every time I thought I'd done him, it was like, no, he's got these gadget legs, mate, that just come and chop. And he weren't just tackling, he was chopping the ball and running off with the ball and stuff. Yeah. And it was, Wes Brown was tough as well. So them couple in my actual position on the pitch, you know, right backs, they were really good.
Last 2. So the first one is the best manager you played under, or even just your favourite, if not necessarily the best.
I'd probably say overall best, Steve Bruce. But someone that was really good for me as well at Coventry, Mickey Adams, really good for me. You know, my golden era at Cov, really. Eric Black put me back in the team, but Mickey Adams coming in, I was consistent for him for 2.5 seasons. But then I think Bruce was really good. But then it's a strange one, because as I've got probably 30 onwards, I've worked with some coaches and managers now, and I think the detail now is a lot finer.
Yeah.
I think the prep's a lot finer and detailed for games, like analysts involved and stuff. And coming to Doncaster, Darren Ferguson educated me at 33, I think it was. You probably think you kind of know most things about the game, but looking back now with a coach's head on it, he was a real education playing for him, because he'd work on probably 2 or 3 formations during a week, and there'd be a trigger or a signal in a game, and we'd know to switch to that formation, and we'd have worked on it all. And Darren Moore's similar now at Doncaster now, really good, such technical detail into everything they do. So, but in terms of my career, Bruce was probably the best.
Fair enough. And the final question, the grand one to finish on, and you've got plenty to choose from, is your favourite game of your career? The best one you've been involved in. If I had to give you one, what would you go for?
Probably just for the occasion, scoring, Coventry, the history of it. The last game at Highfield Road, we beat Derby 6-2, I think. I got 2, and it was just a great day. You know, Jimmy Hill and all the old legends were there.
Yeah.
Just a great day for the city.
Fair enough. It's been brilliant to speak to you. It's always great to have a former Luton player on for me, and you were absolutely a hero for me growing up watching Luton. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being honest and sharing your thoughts.
Cheers, Dan. Nice one, mate.